I mean, the weather's too bad.
Being in the center of the film industry, Grand Central Air Terminal naturally found its way into countless movies shot during the 30s and 40s.
The things I do for All-Star Pictures. Hooray for Hollywood.
It was at Grand Central that Benny Goodman's orchestra played Hooray for Hollywood as a send-off for Dick Powell.
It's really got me, hooray, 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 hooray for Hollywood.
But an even more famous tune was sung at Grand Central Air Terminal by the most popular actress of the day.
I want to make some noise with real-life aeroplane. Someday I'm going to fly. I'll be a pilot too. And when I do, how would you like to be my crew? On the good ship, Lollipop, it's a sweet trip to a candy shop where
The good ship Lollipop was a Douglas DC-2, then the largest, most modern airliner in the sky. When it took delivery of its own sleek versions of the DC-2, TWA chose Grand Central Air Terminal, the most modern airport in the West, as a backdrop for the airliner's official portrait. The terminal was featured in many magazine and newspaper articles of the day and was often used by the airlines to promote new services.
Lollipop, it's a night trip. Into bed you hop and dream away. On the good ship Lollipop.
Like the rest of the country, Grand Central Air Terminal went to war in 1941. The U.S. Army Air Corps moved in, splashing the terminal building with a coat of camouflage paint. Glendale had long been known for its flight schools, having trained many of the top pilots in the country. Now the airport was turned into a school for combat pilots who came by the hundreds. Grand Central was also the home base of the 318th Combat Wing, which flew Lockheed's high-powered P-38 Lightning.
The airfield was taken over and the runway was extended to the north, to the next street, which was Western, and the fighter squadron of P-38s was moved in as protection for the West Coast.
Even though the runway was temporarily extended across Sonora Avenue, the P-38s needed every inch of it. Their tails often extended over backyard fences as they turned to take off.
It became a very noisy and a very dusty place down here. A lot of the area to the north was not paved, and when the twin-engined P-38s revved their engines up on takeoff, dust went everywhere.
Though flights in and out of the airport were supposedly secret, it became a popular pastime for Glendalians to sit near the railroad tracks and watch the fighters return from patrol. The hot young pilots obliged the audience with daily impromptu exhibitions over South Glendale and Griffith Park. The 318th had a spotless record, we might add. While they were based at Grand Central Air Terminal, no enemy bomber ever attacked Glendale. Since its beginning, Glendale's airport had been a hub for small, specialized aircraft manufacturers. During the war, work continued at an increased pace. At the end of the war, Grand Central continued to thrive through factory work, reconditioning, and remodeling war surplus aircraft. As an example, nearly 500 P-51 Mustangs were refitted at the facility. However, the end was in sight for the legendary airport, and most everyone knew it. Windows rattled in the summer of 1950 as this B-29 buzzed the field at Grand Central Air Terminal. It flew in low, then flew on. It could not land on Glendale's short runway. 3,800 feet of concrete had seemed huge in 1929, but by the mid-50s, it was too short for a new generation of commercial aircraft. Celebrities still came around occasionally. Dick Powell kept a plane at the airport. However, the hooray for Hollywood days were gone. By 1959, weeds grew up from the cracks in the concrete that had been walked by Charles Lindbergh and Amelia Earhart, by Wiley Post, Pancho Barnes, Jimmy Doolittle, and dozens of others. Buildings which saw the design and construction of the first aircraft to bear the names of Jack Northrop and Howard Hughes were now standing with broken windows and peeling paint. The airlines who had once called Grand Central their home, who proudly posed their finest aircraft in front of the terminal building, had moved on. Frankly, the airport was becoming more trouble than it was worth to local citizens. It's true that nothing lasts forever, and nowhere is it more true than in Southern California. Grand Central Air Terminal, once a showplace for modern aviation, ceased operation July 15th, 1959. The old terminal building sits alone now, amid a bustling industrial complex to be sure, but nonetheless alone. Looking up at the faces of the sentries that grace the four corners of the deserted tower, it's easy to let yourself wonder, do they still dream of flight?
It's rather a long story, Mr. Fry. It all started with an unknown blonde, an aircraft worker at a factory in Glendale, California.
I get it.